Where's Creed? Creed?
Here.
Quality assurance. Your job. I really think you screwed the pooch on this one, Creed. Because of you, the entire company is in jeopardy.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I'm feeling better, but wouldn't you know it? Somebody on here is feeling under the weather. Perch, what happened, man?
It's the fall flu or cold or something. So just it's just.
I don't know. Can you get the flu through YouTube? Did I give it to you?
That's what's going on now. I think. Yeah.
The good thing is, here it lasted less than 48 hours, so hopefully you'll be right as rain tomorrow.
There you go. I hope springs eternal.
Yeah. So we talked about this the last video we did. We're going to talk about. I said the 5 things that I got wrong about 2020. We're going to expand it out to the 6 things yours truly got wrong in 2020. Perch is going to make fun of me, make me look like a fool. Everybody's going to go in the comments. They're going to jeer me. They're going to talk about how stupid I am. But these are the things I thought would happen, and I was off base. Now, before we get to this list, Perch, I do want to say, if you're visiting the channel, you like comics, but you haven't subscribed to Thinking Critical YouTube, what are you waiting for? This is the perfect channel for you. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you like content like this. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. And we won't revisit stuff like this anymore. Either way, we definitely want to hear your feedback. I imagine everyone's going to make fun of me for being such a moron, but that comes with being a content creator. People are going to make fun of you. They're going to tell you you're stupid when you got it wrong. But are you ready for this, Perch?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
This is my number 1, and I think a lot of people got this one wrong. I thought in 2020 X-Men would be the best-selling ongoing series the entire year. After House of X, Powers of 10, we heard about Dawn of X. We knew Hickman was going to be on that franchise or on the flagship title. Everything that was set up to be explored from House of X, Powers of 10, I thought he was going to do that in X-Men. I thought the sales would be over 100,000 the entire year. I didn't realize Batman was going to bounce back quite like it had under Tynion. So I think both of those factors have been into it, and X-Men is definitely disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's such a crazy prediction. I think, Batman was always going to be a tough title to beat. Even when King was on it, it was still selling consistently high numbers. And, I mean, they could spike it with its anniversary and thing. But Tynion has come in and reinvigorated that comic and brought some new interest to it. It's made it easier to consume, which, I mean, a lot of people forget that factor. It's when you have a very dense run, whether you love it or you hate it, it's harder sometimes for new people to get into it. And so Tynion has made that comic a lot easier to just step in and start reading it. If you haven't read it for a while, you're not caught up on Batman. So I don't think that's the craziest idea. And X-Men just, if they published half the titles, then I think it would have helped. But honestly, there's just too much going on. And I think Hickman's done in one approach for each issue. Might have not been the best plan long term, but it's easy to step in. It's easy to step out.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting horticulture. How could I see that?
How could you see that? Yeah, nobody could see that coming.
So, I was bought in hook, line, and sinker on House of X, Powers of 10. I thought Dawn of X would be just as good. At least the X-Men and X-Force series. I'm still reading X-Men. I think X-Force is still excellent, but a little bit disappointing for our sales. Now let's get to my number 2 on this list, and this one. Kind of heading into the year, this is kind of what I thought, but not too long ago, this is definitely what I thought after we saw some changes at DC Comics. At the end of 2019, Michael Bendis was writing or in control of like 20% of all new comics at DC. And it felt like his creative influence and his voice was just growing. We knew that they'd done some restructuring at DC. There were only 2 I believe creators that had permanent offices in the DC headquarters, and one of them was Michael Bendis. And I truly thought by the end of 2020, he would be the leading creative voice at DC Comics as Scott Snyder stepped back from superhero comics and was working more on kind of his independent creator-owned stuff. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the changes at DC were people didn't expect that. Now that said, I'm curious. 2021 is going to go one of two ways. Either Bendis is going to kind of rebound and get something higher profile, or not. I mean, it's now the question mark to DC is if they're going to double down on him or cut their losses. And it's like we've been talking about. It seems like he's being moved off things, but who knows? I mean, it kind of depends on where they land. I think all eyes are on about 3 weeks from now when we start to truly see what 2021 is going to look like.
Yeah, obviously with the X-Men thing, I was a little bit disappointed. This is one where my expectations were pretty low, and this absolutely exceeded it. This wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting Bendis to come off Superman quite as early, and I thought he would just kind of get more creative influence over the titles. He's obviously been bringing in creators. We've got Kelly Sue DeConnick, Matt Fraction. He's brought in some artists, some editors. It looks like they're courting Chip Zdarsky, another Bendis ally. So I think the jury's still out, but he certainly doesn't have as much creative influences as we probably both anticipate.
Yeah, exactly. It is. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those happy to be surprised. I'm with you. I would have made the same prediction.
All right, so another one. Obviously, The Walking Dead for Image Comics was the franchise, that along with Saga. Saga's been gone for like 2 years now, even though it was supposed to take a 12 to 18-month hiatus. Brian K. Vaughan, has he even been out there talking about it? I haven't heard anything. So when The Walking Dead was the last big hit that they had, and I thought when The Walking Dead ended abruptly, obviously, Image was going to need to find something for that kind of post-apocalyptic audience that was flocking to that comic. And I thought Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, and Camo's Undiscovered Country would probably be that title. Obviously, it had some buzz initially, but it hasn't raised up in sales quite like I thought. I really thought that would be the comic that kind of fit that niche. Obviously, Jonathan Hickman had Decorum coming out, but that felt like it was going to kind of fill that east of west niche, that audience that was going to be missing out on that. But it doesn't appear that way. Obviously, Undiscovered Country is doing solid numbers for Image, but it doesn't appear to be moving towards that flagship. Oddly enough, it appears that Spawn is doing that.
Yeah, I don't think people saw Spawn coming. I thought Undiscovered Country would do better. I think it's maybe a slight alarm bell, I think, to a lot of creators who I think believe that they had some level of high profile at one of the big two, and they can go over to Image and have a top selling book. I mean, you heard that over and over, that one day we'll just go over there and it'll be green pastures and it'll be fine, and we can kind of take that spot. And it isn't working out that way. You're right. I think Undiscovered Country is not blowing up like I think a lot of people thought it would. And I mean, I don't know. It does okay numbers, but it's settled down lower. It's not going to be Spawn, which is just weird. And it's not going to be anything like Saga or like The Walking Dead was, or even Wiccan the Divine. Some of those books, it's not there. Even Remender stuff has kind of flattened out in a lot of cases. So it's interesting to see what's happening with Image. Everybody's talking about the big two, but they're struggling to get that big hit.
What's interesting is I think Soule and Snyder, obviously they couldn't have predicted this. They might have been victims of circumstance as far as the timing. I think if they have launched or within the pandemic shutdown and they had to delay it until, like maybe a month ago, it would have done a lot better, because it appears that the launching of independent titles is booming up right now as far as sales. We know that James Tynion, who's white hot on Batman, is launching his Department of Truth. I believe that's the comic over at Image. And it's already exceeded sales 100,000 in issue number 1. I think their timing, obviously nothing they could do about that. You couldn't predict the market the way it is right now. That might have been bad timing.
It might have been. I'm also curious to see some of these books and how they go out over time, because it feels like people are struggling to hold an audience. Like, you can get that number 1 issue, you can get a couple out, but then the sales fall very rapidly. It feels like the sales behavior of the big two has made its way to Image and creator owned, where they are spiking that first issue sale, but it quickly falls 50%. And it feels like these big writers from those companies are bringing kind of the sales trends with them.
Are they bringing the gimmicks with them? Are they bringing all the variant covers and the well-known artists? Do you think that's what it is?
I think that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, I think when you spike a number like that, you're not getting true interest in the title. You're getting interest for the number one or the gimmick that's going along with it. And I think that's, you're seeing Image lean into that a little bit, which is surprising. I mean, they swore for a long time that wasn't their way of doing things.
Absolutely. So let's get into my number 4 prediction. And I was half right on this one. We've been talking about IDW and their financial issues. We thought, there was going to be a major play for that number 4 publisher in the comic book industry. 2 names that we talked about were Dark Horse and Boom. I personally put my money on Dark Horse. I thought they had the properties, they had the good writers. I have been reading Boom, and I like a few of their comments. I didn't realize just how far they would come so fast, with Something Is Killing the Children. We got Once and Future. What is it? We Only Find Them When They're Dead. They got a lot of big titles out right now with some pretty big names that are with the big 2. And it appears that it's Boom that's making a play for the number 4 publisher, not Dark Horse.
Yeah, Boom has taken an approach. I mean, they obviously have these creators doing these titles, but they're going for just consistency, one foot in front of the other. They have good retailer terms. They've been probably the most transparent and easy to work with, I would say, the indies for the comic shop. And people can say the direct market's dying and all the rest, but that is your channel. So they've put effort into it, and they've just been steady. They've been reliable, I guess. And when everything else is all over the place, reliable wins the day. And so that's where it feels like it has done. Dark Horse is interesting because I think I don't know, it's whether it's an asleep at the wheel kind of behavior or what, but they're not making the same kind of moves, and maybe they just don't have the ability to at this moment, or they're tied up in some other conversations. But Boom has been impressive this year, and I think they've shown how you do it as an indie company.
And interesting enough, as far as Dark Horse, they just lost probably their 2 most important licenses after they lost the Star Wars license about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. So they've been losing some of their most important properties. Are they going to be able to replace them with other licensed properties? Or are they going to have to do it with original IP? I would put my focus on original IP.
Yeah, they need to. I think licenses are there's a ceiling to them, and I don't think there's a hot license out there right now you could easily just run and take that isn't going to be so expensive you're not going to profit off of it. I mean, somebody was pointing out that hey, Dark Horse should go after the Harry Potter license. It's like that would be tremendously
expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it would sell, but I don't think they'd make a big profit off of it. Just
maybe Cobra Kai, is that one available?
It might be. There you go. They need to do something. So Dark Horse definitely needs to make some moves, but hats off to Boom. They were the surprise this year for sure.
Absolutely. Those guys have been juggernauts as far as the indies go. All right, this is my number 5 thing I was totally wrong about. I think you might have been wrong about this one too, though. I thought another publisher or 2 would have signed up with UCS or Lunar Distribution by now. Obviously, this is new predictions. The Lunar and UCS came online during the pandemic shutdown at the behest of DC Comics. They became the exclusive distributors for DC when they broke off their agreement with Diamond. But still, they're the only publisher with that with those distributors. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I am too, and I think because we heard from I think Lunar at least that they were talking to other publishers, and there was an expectation that something was going to happen. So it's a little strange that hasn't. I know people have talked to them, and I know that there's at least been some plans, and I gather that some publishers are in a wait and see kind of behavior. I do think the startup was a little bit more painful and of a scramble than people thought it would be, and I think that has definitely changed a little bit about how people have gotten going again. But it is surprising that it stayed the way it is, and I think if we get into January and it's still just DC, that's going to be a bad warning flag that this isn't going to be anything more than a single point distribution center. And I think they're at the point where they have to get some other people signed now, or I'm going to start to question its viability going forward.
So do you think that a lot of these publishers already have exclusive agreements with Diamond that they technically they said weren't broken due to the pandemic shutdown and they can't go sign with them? or do you think they're just choosing not to go over there?
Well, I think it's a combination. I think in some cases they're choosing not to make that move right now because they're just trying to get up on their feet. I do think some do have exclusive agreements that they're small. I mean, unlike a DC or a Marvel, they don't have the legal bank to go fight it. And so I think that's factor two. I would be completely unsurprised if we learn that Steve Geppi and lawyers made some calls to some of the smaller publishers, said, you better not talk about moving because we're going to sue you. I would be unsurprised if that was going on.
Also, I think Diamond probably owes some of them money still.
Oh, yeah. Diamond owes, I think, just about everybody money at this point. So I think that's all a factor. I mean, I've heard of strong arm tactics that are being applied to shops that were kind of going out and supporting these two new guys, and Diamond owes them money, and there's just this kind of subtle threat of we'll slow roll you some cash. So I think some stuff's happening behind the scenes, and I think that there's some companies that just don't feel like they can move legally or financially right now, but probably want to.
Interesting. All right, this is my last one. This is number 6. I'm shocked this hasn't happened yet. We know Kevin Feige was announced as a new chief creative officer over everything Marvel at the end of last year. I think it was in October. I might be wrong on the timing on that one. I assume by now they would have made major changes at Marvel as far as leadership and kind of changed the direction of Marvel Comics, but that hasn't changed. Maybe the pandemic has played a part in that. I certainly would have expected it before the changes at DC. Obviously, DC has had a major upheaval. We're still waiting for it at Marvel. Do you think it'll happen before the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it is happening behind the scenes in some cases. And the pandemic and everything that went on with Disney and just kind of the massive change in that business slowed things down. But I do think this is coming. And I think that your prediction would have been right if not for the pandemic. I think the pandemic just put everything on some level of hold. I think in terms of, kind of stop the bleeding in terms of cash outflow, there's just much bigger places within Disney to go do that. And they have been. And I think Feige's been consumed with, what to do about the pictures he's got. When are they going to get released? How is this going to upset his schedule? I just think there's been no attention put on it, but it's coming.
Yeah, it has to change, right? Kevin Feige has his own plans and ideas for Marvel Comics. Likely you're going to need a leadership change and some people to implement those things that he trusts. And I imagine that's not going to be a whole lot of people at Marvel Comics. We know that they had the writer's room, right?
Yeah.
That he was a part of, and he disbanded it because he thought it was a waste of his time.
Yeah, I mean, it's what led him to break apart and get a higher profile of reporting was that he couldn't stand these people who were, basically just, inserting their creative council ideas and being apparently very difficult to work with. All reports, I mean, including from some of the people themselves who kind of chuckle about it now, is that was a completely, kind of ego stroke room, and they came off very, very poorly. And so, some of those people are, of course, still at Marvel today, and I can't imagine they'll last under a Feige run. And I think you had people like Joe Quesada, who, when Feige was announced, he got very silent on social media, and it felt like he was bracing for it, and then time has just passed. So I do think we were delayed by a year, but we're getting to it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so those are my 6 predictions for 2020, things that I thought would have happened by now that haven't happened. I think we're still in a holding pattern as far as the financial viability of IDW. I still don't think that they're on solid ground. I do think eventually that they're going to have to start selling off their pieces even more than they already have. We're still waiting to see what the fallout of the PPP loans, that money is drying up. How many retailers are we going to lose after the pandemic? Obviously, we still have the unrest going on in major cities in the United States. How many of those shops are actually going to shut down? Are we going to lose publishers once the PPP money dries up, and maybe some of them have to start paying it back because they didn't maybe retain the amount of employees that they were supposed to get it to be a forgivable loan? So those are some of the kind of outstanding things that are out there. Couldn't really put them on this list because I just don't think we have clarity on them. Is there anything else that you kind of predicted, or is this a good list?
I mean, I predicted all kinds of things, and I was wrong on plenty of them. I think that the pandemic and everything that happened just threw everything for a loop, and I think that's just it's just the nature of the business. It was a surprise, and that's what we got. So it's been a funny time for sure.
Absolutely. So definitely from the viewers, if I was dead wrong and you knew I was wrong, let me know in the feedback in the comment section. Call me out, call Perch out. If we couldn't say it, but you saw it, let us know. We love hearing the feedback, and stick it to us. Let us know we were dumbasses. We appreciate that. Perch, I appreciate you coming on the channel. I know you're feeling under the weather. I was suffering from that a few days ago. It was not pleasant, but I do appreciate the time. And if you haven't subscribed to Perch's channel, he's got a brilliant YouTube channel, three videos a day about the comic book industry. There's a link in the video description, as well as there should be an icon up on the screen right now. You can select that. You go to his channel, subscribe that way. I highly recommend it. He's a great dude, passionate about the industry, and he's a good friend.
Well, thank you very much. Likewise, I think if anybody listening to this who's not subscribed to Thinking Critical is nuts. So I would recommend you do that right now.
Absolutely. They are nuts. It's the best channel on YouTube besides yours.
No, absolutely.